Hi, Flosstube. It's Arlene. It's Monday, December 18th, and it's been 3 weeks since I've been here. And I know it's been 3 weeks because the last time I was here making a video was the end of Thanksgiving break, and here I am on winter break. So there were 3 weeks of school life in between, and it's busy. And I stitch and I do the things I need to do to keep myself sane, but making a Flosstube video just didn't happen. But I'm glad to be here today, and I've got assembled around me a number of things that I'm just here to share with you. I hope that in whatever busyness you might have at this time of year, you are able to take the time to stitch and do the things that you love. And I know for most of the people watching, that is stitching. I think so many of us talk about the way it calms us and soothes us. It's meditative. I was reading on a Facebook group, not a stitching Facebook group, but something else, and someone was talking about needing a hobby, is the word she was using, because of stressful job, stressful life, coming home, and all she does is get ready for the next stressful day of life. And just as I have known for years and years of my life, how much I appreciate that I do come home to knowing that I have something that I do with my hands that keeps my mind occupied, that gives me what I need. Whatever creativity comes from it, it's just been something that's been so important in my life, as I know it is for so many of you. So I have a number of things to share, and I'm just going to jump right in. I also have to say, I use my laptop when I'm making videos, and I usually have a very clear, distinct pile of books. And today I have more books in that pile, and there's a reason for that that's going to come out later. But it amuses me how I've adjusted with this larger pile of books, and it's still working for me. So anyway, okay, I'm going to start out with a finish that I have shared on Stitch Mania and Instagram. So if you're on those, you saw this posted a week ago. You saw this in my last video, and I just realized I did not bring up the original pattern, but you saw this in my last video, so you could go back and see what the original looks like. I wonder what it would look like if I turned off this light. Well, now you see through it. What if I put that in front? I'm just trying to help to get the real gauge of the real color. So this is called Solar Flare. The original of it is in reddish oranges in the outer edges, and then it becomes to white in the center. And I decided that I wanted to do it in purples, a purplish plum color, with the lightest colors on the outer edges to dark in the center. I have this idea, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it because I have enough fabric. This is rolled up, so I have enough fabric over here that it would be interesting to do the reverse, to do the darker colors on in the edges and to bring it toward the light in the center. I still, question my colors, particularly the darks, that you could see a more distinct edge of where the color changes are. To me, the darkest particularly. And I struggled in finding the right colors. And I wondered, and I was able to pick these out in various stores. Actually, there's a story related to the darkest color, which I'll get to in a minute. That you could really see that darkest. And what would be different, how would it look different if it was, I don't know. You could take a DMC color card, and there are a few places where you could get eight shades. There's only 8 threads in here. 5 out of my 8 were variegated, which I thought brings a neat piece to it. There are places on the DMC color card where you could get, I think you could get 8. It might only be 7 is the largest, shades in a color family. And it would be really interesting to do this all with shades in one color family to truly get the, the perfect darkest to lightest. And that, if I want to do it again, that would be one way to go. You could search online solar flare and see variations of colors or different ways to do it. So yeah, in my plans to eventually do the reverse shading and just to see how it looks, not in the most immediate plans because I've got other projects calling me right now. But yeah, it's, I liked the challenge of it. As I've talked about before, it's counted canvas work, so there are some neat stitches. That said, it's a repeat. I mean, you may not see it when you first look at it. I didn't. I had to study the pattern, and it was really interesting to study it. But the truth is, it's 16 squares, or not squares, 16 sort of squares. And once you get it down, it's repetitive. And by the end of it, I'm not gonna say I'm bored, but I was ready to be done with it. I mean, I wanted to be done with it, but I'm not so anxious to keep doing the same stitches over and over again. So there you go. That's my finish on solar flare. When I finished that, I started working on something that, so let me just back up. In November, I had a day where I was in New York City with some friends who were part of a trip I was on a few years back. They were coming into New York City. They all are needlework enthusiasts. Most of them have more of an interest in the fine hand sewing world and fine handwork, not so much in the needlework world, but we all love this world. They were coming in for crazy shopping, like in the garment district of New York City, where you buy amazing fabrics, and it was just fun to go in and join them for a day and just be a part of that. And we just had a lot of the same interests. So in that one day that I was with them, they were there from Thursday to Sunday or early Monday. We hit a lot of places. So, but I had put in this request, could we go to the American Folk Art Museum in New York City was having a quilt exhibit, and I knew these would be people who would appreciate quilts. And so if you have, this is like a, brochure thing that I picked up. The exhibit is still there now. If you are anywhere in the New York City area, you like museums, you want to check it out, it's only there until January 7th. It's called War and Peace, the Annette Gero collection of quilts from military fabrics. And it just intrigued me when I heard about it, saw some review. I don't know where I first heard of it, a few months ago. It's been there since September. Because of some of the pictures of what these quilts look like. They're like mosaics. And they, and just like to read the New York Times review of the exhibit and a couple of other things like that to know this would be really cool to be able to see. It was worth trying to get into the city to see it. And then, of course, to be able to be there with some folks that could appreciate it as well. So it was fascinating. And it just so happens this particular quilt, but there are others. So let me show you. There were a number of them. Many of the ones that were on display were very mosaic-like. Oh, and then also, to be clear, although it uses the word quilt, most of these quilts were what's the overlying tie. They were collected by this Australian quilt historian, collector, academic, who these all, to research knowledge based, made by men out of military fabric. So the fabric is like wools, the colors, clearly military fabric. Most of them are not actually quilts in the way we define quilt, the sort of the 3 layers of quilts. These are mostly just one layer. The way they were created. And okay, so this one that I'm showing there, here's my picture of, okay, and, I don't have it in front of me. I'll open up the book in a second, but 7 feet by 7 feet, something like that. I mean, it was And those are tiny pieces. This one in particular, there was a lot of attention created toward or put toward the border, which even if I zoom in, you're not going to get quite the effect. But these tiny little pieces on this right there, which are this odd shape, but they were all precisely that odd shape, came from when you punched out a particular part of it might have been from the buttonholes, but when you punched out a piece of something from the uniforms, you were left with this little scrap. And all those scraps were collected and used in the border of this quilt. Anyway, so there were a number of them that I took a number of pictures of, because if you can guess where my brain was going, I was just thinking, this reminds me of cross-stitch pattern. And you have seen me do this before when I take, well, the Antioch mosaic. It was, I am inspired by one artisan. Can I create something in another artist's medium? And this one in particular, the mathematics of it appealed to me, especially trying to figure out, so some of it, if I were to zoom in, you would see some of the parts are, as I'm looking at it right now, are rotated as a diamond. And then some areas are square, or, you know, on square as we're looking at it now. And of course, and you know, they have some information about like this particular quilt and the flags that are there and the crowns. These crowns were beaded. I mean, there's all kinds of fascinating things about these quilts. So I started by just saying, could I even plot this out? And I realized to take it on a graph, like a piece of graph paper or a grid, I couldn't picture it as a cross stitch like this. I had to pick, all right, the iPad's not, I had to picture it as a diamond to be able to get, because this one had the majority of the pieces as a diamond. You following me, people? So, obviously there's more pieces to what I've plotted, but you're just seeing this right now. So, the white areas is what I hadn't figured out yet. But this was such an intriguing challenge for me. Can I create something on a graph paper? And this part, as I'm holding it right now, this part needs to be done squares while these all are diamonds, and I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that. These white, as you're seeing them now, are diamonds, are actually these other, I'll hold this thing up, quilt blocks, for lack of better words. Haven't figured out how I'm going to deal with that. But I like a good math needlework puzzle. So this is what I've been working on. Let's see if I'm in camera view. So I'm doing this, here we go. I'm doing this on 36 count linen 1/2. And you could see I'm like at a corner. And love that one strand works. I mean, that's kind of why I'm doing it on 36, because I didn't want to do something with 2 strands. And the vision, if I can make this all work, if I could, and you could see here, as far as I've gotten this out, I mean, here's going to be the size. And that's assuming I don't do anything with the amazing border. Like the actual quilt is a slight bit more rectangular, and then separate that from that amazing border that was created with the buttonhole cutouts, which I can't picture translating to cross stitch. It's the mosaic pattern that appeals to me. So you could see, what did I figure? 140 stitches, you know, the diamond shape from here to here, something like that. And then I was thinking, so is it totally crazy? Have you ever seen anything like this? A cross stitch pattern where you stitch it on a diamond, you know, a diamond shape, and then you frame it as a square. Like, is that, I mean, it's totally out of the box thinking, but it could be done. I'm thinking to make this work, there will be like some specialty, like I would need to do some specialty stitches here. It might totally not be, it might, reproducing these quilt blocks, it just might need to be my own thing. And what I will actually do in terms of figuring out the pattern that goes in this area that needs to be in effect rotated the other way, haven't figured out that yet. I just wanted to share with you, this has been my recent puzzle. The colors, just so you can see a close-up of the colors, because, well, here they are. I have them laid out neatly. It's just 7 colors of DMC. And for some silly reason, when I was doing this, I thought, it was at, it's like the DMC sale around Thanksgiving. I decided I better buy 2 of each just in case. And then I'm stitching this. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to need more than 1 of each. But anyway, that's why I happen to have unused skeins to hold up in front of you. So these are the 7 colors. And how close are these to the actual colors? You know, it's not like I brought my DMC color card to the museum, okay? This is as good as I can decide based on pictures that I took. They allowed pictures at the museum, and this is as good as I could decide based on my pictures that were taken without a flash, and that frankly kind of looked okay together. You know, there was a little bit of that. I think like the blue and the red that I'd originally picked out when I was holding them together in Joann's or wherever I was like, yeah, I need to look for something slightly different. Anyway, so I've been working on that. I admit a couple nights ago got a little frustrated with a few things. Need to put it aside. Wanted to share with you. So the exhibit, I don't know if it's particularly going anywhere after the Folk Art Museum. It's the collection. It's a collection of this Australian historian. She wrote a book. In the book, they say it's the exhibit is accompanied by this book. The book does have a copyright date of 2015. So the book has a lot more quilts in it than were on exhibit. But I do believe all the ones that were on the exhibit are in the book. I love the libraries, people. You've heard me say this before. You can get the book at the American Folk Art Museum. It is, I just was looking it up, it's like $69. I'm just not a person that buys $70 books. It's just not me. And very interesting, this is not a book that you can get on Amazon, that you can get, even though it's 2 years old, that you can get on a used book website, because I looked. But interlibrary loan came through for me once again, so I'm not going to have this in my hands for very long. But I did just want to show you. So here is the quilt that I'm referring to and been particularly fascinated with. But I just wanted to point out a few of the others that I took pictures of that, ow. So here is another one, very mosaic-like. You know, this one I couldn't see particularly translating to cross stitch. Now, a little bit more about these quilts. Where did they come from? You know, there were, this is a painting. Were there actually, again, war quilts made of military uniforms, a huge range of time period, a huge range of areas, a lot of them British, but not all. Were they created by, you know, soldiers as they were healing from wounds, like this painting portrays? Doesn't seem likely. It seems so many of them, as you read, and as I was reading at the museum, so many of them were so well done. They clearly had tailors or tailoring skills that it's hard to believe that they were just created like by, this is something you could do while you're healing in bed. Is this the one? Okay, so there were only 3 or 4, I think they had all 4 quilts of this genre known to be created by by any Americans, and it was one particular American. And he made at least 3, perhaps 4, And as far as we know, he was the only American soldier to make these geometrical quilts for military uniforms. It is suggested that he may have seen British soldiers making similar items when he was stationed in Alaska. His dates are 1847 to 1927. So this one I thought was really interesting. It's mostly all diamond shapes. And then, and this is interesting, well, here were two, but this one in particular, which the colors in this book, or at least the blues are showing up, or the pictures I took, the blues seem to show up quite differently than this picture in the book. And again, you know, I have some zoomed in pictures, and it was all about the mosaics and the pieces and how those pieces came together. Some of these could lend themselves to being broken down into a graphed pattern, and some of them couldn't. This is another one that just appealed to me. This one is from 1890 India. So the way there were a lot of British soldiers in India. Check out all the pieces. And these are all different shapes. So you got diamonds, you got hexagons, you got squares. There's a lot going on in that. You know, at first it's visually way too much, but there's a lot that just, you know, it's just really appealing. Anyway, there's a lot covered in this book. I'll also put a link down below to the exhibit that has a few pictures, a link to the American Folk Art Museum's page of the exhibit. It's got a few pictures of the exhibit and a few of these quilts. I know there's a number of quilters out there. You just might be interested. And again, it's not traditional quilting, as most of them were not quilted, but they're just fascinating. I found it fascinating. And if you're anywhere near New York City and can get to it before January 7th, I think it is a really interesting exhibit. Did I finish talking about the stitching of it? So anyway, this is this is as far as I have gotten. Will it turn into a pattern that I offer for sale? We'll see. There's a lot of ifs involved. Right now I'm enjoying the process of figuring out what I'm going to do with it. I'd be curious to know if it has appeal to you. So, although when I did the other night need to put it aside, I don't like to do this, people, but I did need to start something else, and I am just not a multi-project kind of person at all. But especially during this winter break time, I knew I needed to have a project that I'd be able to take with me a few places. I'm going to be up with my family for a few days and so on, and I knew that this quilt needlework project would not be a good one just because there's a little too much thinking involved. So many of my designs I have wanted to do models for. Could we just like make 48-hour days, and could I just win the lottery so all I could do is stitch all the time? Would be wonderful. Neither of those things have happened yet. But one of the ones I really wanted to stitch was this pattern. This was one of the ones that I just put out in November. Yes. And so back to the colors and the threads that I was talking about related to solar flare. So that same day I was in New York City going to the Quilt Museum, and I was with these people, these friends, all enthusiasts of all the same things. One of the many stops we made that day was at a store called Annie's in the upper, like we were all over the city. So the Garment District is in like the 30s. We were up on the Upper East Side. The Folk Art Museum is like in the 50s. We were on the Upper East Side. Annie's is a mostly needlepoint and knitting store, and there were definitely knitters among our group. And we had been there when the same trip happened a year ago, and so that Annie's was definitely on the stop. At that point in November, I had already started Solar Flare, and I was already concerned about the darkest shade that I had picked out for Solar Flare, that I knew it wasn't right. So I had gone in that day with, you know, some of my thread pieces, hoping to find something that might work. Now, I couldn't bring like the whole project with me, and I just had some threads. And there is also the case of you know, when you're with friends, you go a little, maybe you make some purchases that you don't mean to. At Annie's, so it's a needlepoint store, but they definitely, what I knew they would have a bunch of threads. I had already been to Needleworkers Delight near me, and I already had scouted out what they had in person. This was not something that I could buy online. I had already exhausted DMC colors. At Annie's, they had Anchor, and I thought, oh. So I picked up a thing of Anchor, and then I picked up, this is Silken Colors. Yes, Silken Colors. And this was a variegated, and I liked the idea of bringing in a variegated to that darkest shade. Now this, it's showing up pretty good on the screen, had an awful lot of gray in it. But I thought, especially looking at it like this, that the purple plum part was the right shade to be that darkest color. And I thought, well, just like I had been selective in parts of the variegated threads that I'd used in other parts of Solar Flare, well, I'll just cut out the gray part and just use that, and it just might work. Now, knowing I would cut out some pretty significant parts, I thought, well, I knew I better buy 2 of them. And then you're with people, and they start talking to you, and then you realize how dye lot dependent this kind of thing is, and the next thing you know, you're buying 3 of them. And they're silk threads. This is not your 53-cent DMC. So anyway, you know, but it's beautiful. I love this. I love this color combination, this purple and gray. It's beautiful. Sorry. But then when I opened it up, this is the one that's opened up. And opened up, it was so much gray and so little purple. And I just could not make that purple work for that part of Solar Flare that I needed it to be. And as it turned out, the Anchor floss that I bought there actually worked. And that's the darkest shade in Solar Flare, is that Anchor, that particular color of Anchor that has, you know, a DMC equivalent, but it's a perfect example of why DMC and Anchor really aren't equivalent, because the DMC equivalent of it didn't work. So I had these 3 beautiful silk threads, you know, that were what, $6.50 each. And I knew, all right, you know, I got a plan to do something with them. And yeah. So I am doing, the plan is to do all 3 of these using this variegated on a gray linen. And again, let me turn off the light. I think that's probably better. So I'm starting with the one that is like the reddish one down there. And what I like about variegated threads is when you set up when I set up the challenge for myself of how I'm going to play with the variegation. What I've got going on now, I'm going to try and see how I do it. This whole center area, I'm trying to do in a, I don't know what the term is, a speckled way. Like you could see here, I had to jump around because there's long lengths of gray and long lengths of purple plumish. So I have to do a whole speckle thing to get this effect. But then the other areas, I'm just going to let the variegation go as it is to get that effect. And this piece of gray fabric, it's 32 count, I'm doing it 2/2, is long enough. So my plan is to do the 3 squares in a row vertically, or I don't know how I'll end up framing it in the end, or doing whatever in the end. They will each be about a little over 5 inches, like 5 1/4 inches. I probably won't do a border around them, but I don't know. But this, because it's just one thread, is going to be a perfect kind of thing for me to take with me and just to have as a project when the mosaic quilt project isn't the right thing to work on. I'm going to put that light back on and see if that's better. So there, those are the 2 things that I have going on right now. All right, let me get these threads out of the way. Okay, the next thing on the list. So I've rarely talked about gifts, but I'm going to talk about gifts right now. So this past week, I had to, I have to use those words, had to participate in 2 different gift things. One was among the faculty at school. The kids, it's all set up for them. They do a secret snowflake gift exchange, pull names, and by the end of the week, everyone knows who each person got, even though they're supposed to keep it a secret. And the faculty does its own secret snowflake. So you pull a name, you're picking a gift, you're buying a gift for somebody else. And those things just, gift giving, gift receiving stresses me out. I'll talk more about that in a second. Well, I'll just talk, it just stresses me out. And I'm this is my first time at this school, first time going through this. Previous school, there were a couple times, and it was a little bit more among friends, and I'm still trying to feel my way. And I had a lot of fears about it, but the biggest thing for this is I have to put on the right reaction for whatever I get, kind of thing. So I just have to say I was given something that was so thoughtful and sweet. And I posted this on Instagram, and there were a number of people who, I had not seen this, but a few people had responded they had. So I could tell it was a book, and I'm unwrapping the corner, and I could see, I could just see like a little bit that had like looked like cross stitches. I'm like, and it was, and at least some of the people, most, it's just middle school faculty. It was a small, not, what were we, 12, 13 people exchanging gifts. And they are aware that I have another side of my life that I'm trying to work on in terms of a design business in the needlework world. So I thought this was it was so thoughtful. And this is, I'd not seen this before, and not that I am on Amazon looking for stitch books, but it is new. It's came out October 2017. And the women that are in here, I'll hold up the table of contents, are all, so this is in order of like birth. So starting with Cleopatra all the way to Malala. The cross-stitch patterns themselves, you can make your own judgment. Well, what I love about this book, so, I'll just, who will I pick? Should I pick, I should have picked out one ahead of time. Wish somebody was here telling me, who to pick. I'll do Frida because she's on the cover. So for everyone, there's a whole page, like a biography about the person, which I just think is great. And here, they have the stitched version and the pattern. They're all colored patterns. So some people on Instagram, wanted to know a little bit more about the book. So here's like my book review. So all the patterns are colored patterns. They give you the DMC. So if you don't do color patterns, be aware. Now, I'll give you my critique. The stitching that they did, it's not, they clearly didn't care too much about full coverage of, here's Gloria Steinem. You can, it's not full coverage. And the designs are not very, they're not cartoonish, but they're not clearly defined, if that makes any sense. You could see in the pattern, they have a different, I think you could see, trying to define her nose and her mouth. Well, her mouth is okay, but I'd have to look up the actual DMCs. How well does her nose come out in the stitching? Some of them are better than others. Some of them are a little too cartoonish or too not good enough for me. But I think, if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, it's just, I think it's great that a book like this is out there. You can, and then there's a few word patterns in the end. This is, who said this quote? A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That quote has been around for like since the 1920s or something. This is what a feminist looks like. Nevertheless, she persisted. So clearly a recent book. Women Belong in the House and the Senate. I could show you this. I did. Oh, that's right. I posted this on Instagram. I was trying to post the little snapshot pictures of these are the, anyway. So if you're interested in this book, gives you a sense of what, it's just, I appreciated the thought behind it, that someone didn't just give me a generic gift, but that I was given something that was, thought was put into it for me. The other gift exchange I was at, which was with my lace group, was not an individual, you got this person, but it was like, bring a gift and we'll do like a exchange. What I ended up with was a little bit more of a generic thing, and that's fine, whatever. So that was one gift. The next gift that I wanted to share with you. I have been very, I think we all talk about this, so I know many of you feel this way, so grateful for the Flosstube community. And in all kinds of ways, one of the ways in particular is the way I have reconnected with someone from quite some time ago, my first lace teacher. Before I moved to New Jersey, you know, when you're among lace people especially, you get asked the question, how did you get started? Or how long have you been doing lace? And my story, not so uncommon, is that I saw someone demonstrating and I got so intrigued by it. So it was about seeing someone demonstrate it. And it was when I was living down in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., when I was teaching down there before I moved to New Jersey. And I was just, it was like at a fair, like a big fair event. And I was just amazed. And she said, you know, well, I give lessons and I just had a beginner start a couple weeks ago if you're interested. And she must have given me a card or a phone number or something. And I remember just like hanging on to that for a few days and just thinking, I really want to do this. And bravely picking up the phone and calling her and kind of nervously saying, I met you at the blah, blah, blah fair, and you said that you would take on a new student, and I was just wondering what I need to do. And I'm pretty sure her response was something like, well, you've just done what you need to do. And that's what got me started with lace. When I moved to New Jersey, she gave me the names of some folks. I kind of lapsed. There's a whole longer story, but anyway, Elaine, there were a few years when I've sent projects to, I've sent needlework to the Woodlawn competition for a number of years, many years. For a number of years, Woodlawn, I don't know if they still do this. They would allow people to write, if you had a question about a piece, you could fill out a little slip of paper. I have a question about number 82. And you could write, you know, and usually it was about what is the name of this pattern, or, you know, where did you get this pattern? It was usually things like that. And because I've always been someone who had to mail my pieces to Woodlawn, when they would get mailed back to me, I would get, sometimes it would just be one or two, or sometimes a little bundle of these little slips. And again, most of them were usually inquiring the name of the pattern. And many years, because Elaine lives in that area, she would like leave a slip just saying, hi, Arlene, love your work. But again, that wasn't always consistent with Woodlawn, and for all I knew, Elaine didn't always get there, and I had just lost contact with her. And then a year ago, when I was able to go to a lace event up in Ithaca, New York, I knew of a few lace people that were going, but when I got there and kind of put in my registration, there was some list, and I'm scanning the list, and I saw her name. I was like, oh my God. And we just had the best conversation, and so then last March I think March is when I started Flosstube. Somewhere in my Flosstube world, she found me. And so, hi, Elaine, I'm assuming you're watching. she also, in my last video, when I commented whether there were any lace makers who could make a comment about whether Miss Chandler's mat is like Lady of the Flag, and she did comment about, make her own comments about that, which it seems like sort of, yeah, okay. She so kindly, as I was sharing lots of patterns and things that I had, projects, stash, she said, well, she contacted me and said, I have something I think you might like. Over the years, I bought 2 of them. I have 2 of them. Would you like it? She sent me this amazing, I mean, this is a booklet, people. This is not just a chart. It's all canvas work. And more than just, you know, you could just see it's patterns. Yes, you could take all those squares and make that flag. And what's so interesting for the needlepoint canvas work people watching, I meant to check into this to look, because there's another similar thing, which I think is called Pageant of Peace, Pattern of Peace. It's another flag design made up like this, but it's not the tapestry piece, whatever. But it's not this one. And I feel like I have seen it in some stores. I've seen it online. There's a whole Facebook group for people who are doing it. You could buy like a painted canvas where someone's just painted in the square, so you just don't have to count, but you could just buy like the booklet that goes with it and count it yourself, I think. But here's one. I'd never seen this before. Loved it. Comes with this whole like history of the flags. What a gift. Thank you, Aline. Thank you. And I'm glad to have reconnected with you. Okay. And now comes a pretty special gift. And you know, just gifts are challenging. And I know why so I've been a teacher a long time, and teacher gifts are a thing around the holidays, maybe at the end of the year also. And when you've been a teacher a long time, you've dealt with teacher gifts for a long time. And I know this has made me a little cynical about gifts that are given out without thought. Oh, we need to get gifts for the teachers. Okay. And you know, and I know that clouds my judgment about, I mean, it's about like gift exchanges, you know, like the one with my lace group where everyone bring a gift and we're going to do a gift exchange. And I'm thinking, okay, but I don't really want anything. I don't want some silly tchotchke, and I don't want to give some silly you know, it's like that whole thing. And I know everyone has their different feelings and their different thoughts, and I respect that. And some people love to go and just get some random surprise. And I know I come from a place where I get a lot of things that I don't need and don't want. And I've been getting it for many years. And so, you know, just to be a little bit more specific, I write thank you notes for all my teacher gifts, even the ones that very clearly have no thought behind it, that are just, we have to get the teachers a gift. And there are way too many boxes of chocolates that are given out. And if you are a parent who are watching me right now, and you've got a pile of boxes of chocolates ready to be given to your kids' teachers, I apologize if I am in any way making you uncomfortable. But, you know, I just got to say, I would say over the years, when it comes to gifts, student gifts, now I'm getting way off track here, and I should just cut this, just to say, I feel very appreciative when there's real thought behind a gift. And so I got something in the mail this weekend that is one of the most thoughtful things that I could imagine getting, especially when I feel like there's way too many thoughtless things that pass through my hands sometimes. A number of us if you're on Instagram, you may have seen this bit of amazingness from Olivia B. and Elena B. And I love watching their floss tubes. When they themselves started posting the pictures from this photo shoot, I just thought it was amazing. I have two sisters. I do not have a sister relationship like this. So I got a package from them. And so I got this picture, this card, and I so appreciate the note on the back. And before I even looked at what else was in the box, it says, "We hope this gift can help you by standing in for your sign here and there." And I did one of these, what? Okay. So ever since I opened my Etsy store, this sign I have shown as my way of being able to talk without like putting it on a screen or doing an insert. And whenever I need to refer to an email, to email me. And it's just this card that sits up here, and I have it, and I'm able to just use it. And I like the real tangibleness of it, not to mention the fact that I don't have to worry about editing or inserting or doing anything fancy, because I just don't do that stuff with my videos. The mug I got from them is so that I can share with all of you. My store's name is WorksByABC. And if you need to email me, there's my email address. So I can hold up a mug instead of having to hold up my sign. And yes, I can drink my water. Every video I bring water up here. I don't know if I've ever had to drink it during that video. There's no water in it today, but there will be in the future. I just appreciate the thoughtfulness, and so thank you, Olivia and Elena, that you would do something like this for me. That I, sort of, yes, the practicalness of it. Come on, light. That I can share as needed. WorksByABC@gmail.com. So this is a gift that has meaning to me. Thank you so much. Okay. I am going to talk about lace now. And so you are welcome to stick around for some lace talk if you would like. And if you would like to move onward, that's fine. This weekend, I had posted a couple of lace-related things on Instagram, and from that, got some new Instagram people, as well as lace people, as well as some commenters that I sensed were needlework people who had either just barely seen lace or wanted to know more about lace, and it just made me think, gosh, I haven't done, well, it made me definitely want to make sure I included some lace stuff in this video, including I wanted to do some bobbin lace in front of you. This is why there's a bigger stack of books in front of me. So I wanted to start with a little show and tell. I took this off the wall. So going back a little bit to my lace story, when I moved to New Jersey, I kind of let my bobbin lace drop for a few years. And then I picked it up again a few years later with, I call it my second lace teacher, when I started going to a craft school up in Vermont. And this was about 5 years after I'd moved here. And that first year, it was like a little bit like riding a bike. Like my hands knew what to do. I just needed to be reminded of some things. And, she was like, what do you want to work on? What do you want to do? And I just wanted to remember how to do things. But I ended up working on a piece that was sort of like a sampler, sort of a sampler of bobbin lace, sort of. And it was something that I was just so pleased when I finished it that I framed it. This was from a time, let me show it to you. Not that it really matters which way it goes. Ooh, nice reflection going on there. So, is it any better if I do this? Oh, no, you can, look at that. You can see, it's like a never ending. Can you see me in the center of that? It's like some cool effect there. So, it's like down a rabbit hole in the center of the center. Okay. So it might not look like a sampler to you, but it is. Or maybe it does. I don't know what it looks like to you. There are different parts of this, like I could point out. These are called spiders. But there's different types of spiders. Like you could see this one has a hole in it in the center and this one doesn't. So those are variations of spiders. And like you could even see like that one and that one look slightly different. This area here is called rose ground, but there are different types of rose grounds. And some of them in the end looked awfully similar, but some of them actually, well, if you could study it up close, you would see some differences. The filling area here, I did, you could see in different grounds. I don't remember if I think the fans, these outer edges are called fans. I think they're all the same. So I didn't do this all in 1 week up in Vermont. It was I started up there. I think I made it to one corner. I was able to turn the corner. And then it was really important to me to finish it. And I liked it enough that I wanted to frame it. And when I took it off the wall, all right, I think McKenna would be proud because I think this fully qualifies as ghetto-ass framing. Let's just say there's Scotch tape involved in the back here. There was a time, I don't think, it's been years, that at Michael's you could buy these frame pieces, like pieces, 2 pieces. So you could make any size frame you want. So I bought, you know, whatever this is, 11 inches, 12 inches. And then these are square, the same size here. I know I got them to cut me a piece of glass. I know you could still do that. And I just loved that I was doing this myself. This is a piece of fabric that so I have 2 others hanging on the wall over there that I did after this from a book. I'll have to share that at another time. That and then I ran out of this fabric because I remember at the time I thought, oh, I love the look of this. I'm just gonna like keep making lace pieces and hang them all on the wall like this. And then I went back to Joann's and they didn't have the same fabric and I was all bummed. So I finished the piece. I probably sewed it onto the fabric, you know, with a couple of stitches and just, you know, whatever I've got underneath here, attached it. And anyway, I loved that you could just make frames whatever size you want. Now nowadays you could probably find something like this online, but you can no longer buy this separate piece thing in Michael's or any of those stores. I just haven't seen that in years. But I definitely have this series of 3 that I did. So I think of this as my transition back to bobbin lace piece. This is the first thing I ever like hung on the wall from lace. So what I'm going to try and do right now. So I wanted to do a little lace demo because I haven't done that in a number of months. And I know that a ton of you have never seen me doing lace or might have questions. Now, I worked on trying to figure out how I was going to do this, and this is why there's more books in the pile, because I was trying to get higher up. And, oh, and then I also have this propping thing. Okay, people. Let's talk about what just happened. I was trying to adjust this so that you could see me doing bobbin lace. In my adjusting, I apparently turned off the camera, but I didn't realize that. I proceeded to then do my whole little demo, talking for probably a good 10 minutes. I was then trying to wind up my video, turned, the computer around, realized it wasn't recording anymore. And then for me to do this demo again, I had to unlace what I had laced during the demo because I couldn't go any further because the next thing to do was just like way too complicated to try and do on camera. So this is how much I love you guys and how much I wanted to share with you is that I unlaced, the equivalent of frogging in stitching. I unlaced so that I could do this for you guys again, okay? But, this is what we do for our Flosstube videos, right? Okay, so I'm in this awkward position, but here we go. I think I'm set up now. So here I am at my lace pillow. All right, so now I just got to do this all again. We've all had the time, so I think this is literally the first time I've had to like do a video a second time, and I'm lucky. It's only like a small part of it. I shared about this piece of lace that's sitting here, which I left sitting here. If you have been watching my videos since the summer, this was a piece from a class that, although it just recently came off my pillow, from a class I took this summer. It's a type of lace called Cantu lace. It's an Italian lace, and I have it here to just talk a little bit about the comparisons. It's a tape lace, which is to say it's only made using about 8 pairs of bobbins. These are bobbins that are on my pillow right now. Tape laces are made with just a small number of bobbins, and I mean this is a simple piece because it was a teaching piece, a learning piece. But tape laces, have swirls. They go in and out. They get connected through often, sometimes very complicated ways. But the way the laciness of it comes from just a small number of bobbins. To compare that with the piece that I'm working on right now is from the family of point ground laces, and this is what I'm creating. It is a point ground lace from Denmark called Turner. If you ever see it written out, it's T-O-N-D-E-R, but it's pronounced Turner. I am only going to make it as long as 4 repeats. And what I'm doing, as I talked about in my last video, is I'm making a piece of lace that is going to fit in my my phone. I have a clear case to put the piece of lace in my phone, and I'll be able to carry a piece of lace with me wherever I go. So if you have never seen bobbin lace before, bobbin lace is a way that lace was made before machines made lace. There's also a whole nother category of lace called needle lace. And, that's a whole nother topic to go on. Bobbin lace is made using some number of bobbins. So a tape lace has a few number. A point ground would have many more. This piece has 32 pairs. You usually talk about it in terms of pairs. 32 pairs, which is to say there are 64 bobbins on this pillow right now. You talk about this as a pillow, although I wouldn't want to put my head and sleep on it because there wouldn't be any sleeping on this. It's too hard. And if you're looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, that's too many, how do you keep track of what you're doing? Well, you can already see that I'm clearly going in a pattern here. Now, I have this lace set up. I did this on purpose, and this was why I had to undo it to film it again. I have it set up in a place that would be easy for me to use when I'm filming. The thread I'm using here, I don't know if you could see it all, it's pretty fine. It's basically finer than a typical sewing thread. But in addition to the regular threads, a lot of point ground laces use a thicker thread, and maybe you can tell this is one of my thicker threads. It's called a gimp. Now, many lace makers will use something to help them just visually see, oh, there's my gimp thread. And what I use are these little bands. And this is from a few years back when Rainbow Loom was the big crafty thing. Buying one little bag of Rainbow Loom elastics, I feel, will last me a lifetime of bobbin lace making. There was recently, I just got to see where I am here. recently a thread on one of the lace groups about don't use rubber bands on your bobbins because it will discolor them or blah, 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 blah. And then other people shoot back by saying, no, they're going to be fine. You know, it won't discolor them. And, you know, number one, the bag I have was all white ones, and I haven't had any problems. A number of people have used for decades the little rubber bands that you could get for like orthodontics, because they're made without whatever substance it is that would discolor them. So just to show you what I'm doing here, the way it doesn't get confusing no matter how many bobbins you have going, and these are all the ones that, you know, just aren't even in use at this time, you really only use 2 pairs, 4 bobbins at once. The movement you make is really only 2 movements. You take the middle 2 and you cross them. Just that movement right there is called a cross. And then you take these pairs and you do this, and that's called a twist. Now what I'm doing right here, I'm actually doing 3 twists in a row. And then I put a pin in. The pattern, which is called a pricking, I have pre-pricked, which is partially why it's called a pricking, so that there's already holes, and that helps me when I'm going to put the pin in, that it finds its way to the hole pretty easily. This particular part of this pattern is not, I'm not closing the pin. And what that means, after I put the pin in, I'm done with that set. And I'm moving on to the next set. When you close the pin, after you put the pin in, you then cross twist or cross twist twist or do something afterwards. Oh wait, I'm not doing it with that. So this guy, there's an example of unlacing. This guy is going off in this direction. So I'm done with that diagonal. I also saved another diagonal to show you. I'm going to need this guy here. These things, bobbin holders, is the way you manage bobbins. When you get a project with like literally 100, 150 or more bobbins, you end up spending a lot of time in just pure bobbin management. And you know, that kind of can detract from the fun of it. I mean, that's one of the reasons some people love the tape laces, because there's so few bobbins involved. But then, you know, some people just love what you can make with the patterns that are involved with so many bobbins. I don't really like to do demos, mostly because what I'm doing right now for you guys, talking and working at the same time, not my cup of tea. It's just, you know, but I'm doing it because I want to share with you all. Now, if you're wondering about the time involved, you know, as stitchers, we can all appreciate how long it takes to stitch this, that, or the other. And you might be wondering how bobbin lace compares. So this little bit that I have going on here, I mean, it's a 1/4 of an inch, 1/3 of an inch, just barely begun. But there's also time involved in winding the bobbins and pricking the pattern. And I was thinking, all right, well, how much time have I already put into this? And this is how I did my time. There was a Bendy Stitchy video. There was a Just Keep Stitching video. There was a Fiber Talk podcast. There was a Letitia Crafty Curator video. Like, I was doing it in terms of what have I been doing in the last, a lot of it yesterday. Winding bobbins was last weekend. Anyway, 3.5, 4 hours just to get to this point. Now, granted, getting things started takes me a while. And I think a lot of lace makers would agree. Just getting all the bobbins hung on, and that's what you call it, to get them all started, is a piece of it. And that, you know, once I have that going, that is good. There's the only thing that's not on there yet, there's one more gimp to go in the center of each of these. And this is as far as I could go in ease, because the next thing I need to do, I can't do and talk at the same time, but that's okay. That probably gives you, whoa, sorry, I'm going to turn you around now. That's going to give you enough of a sense of what bobbin lace is. So, especially if you haven't seen it before, I think that was everything I said the first time around. thank you for sticking with me. If you've stayed with me this whole time, I love sharing. I love this community. I love the support. It means so much to me. For whatever holidays you celebrate, happy holidays. I hope you find lots of time to keep that needle in hand. I hope it gives you what it gives me, that important and much needed soothing break. Until next time.